Have you ever just looked at human anatomy and thought, how much of this is uniquely us, and how much is just an ancient hand-me-down from our primate ancestors? Well, welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into how the human female body is this absolutely fascinating mosaic. It's a mix of deeply conserved evolutionary heritage and some striking, unique divergences. Let's get right into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. Our shared primate ancestry, 2. Natural anatomical variation, 3. Concealed ovulation, 4. The mechanics of arousal, and finally, number 5, we are going to solve the pubic hair puzzle.
All right, starting with Section 1, Shared Primate Ancestry. Let's look at those deep evolutionary roots.
To really grasp our anatomy, we've got to understand something called homologous structures. You can think of it kind of like a biological blueprint. Because we share a common ancestry with other great apes, our fundamental reproductive anatomy comes from the exact same developmental origins. Literally, millions of years of evolution have passed, but those core biological foundations have stayed completely intact.
And it's amazing to see because regardless of the specific great ape species we're talking about, whether you're looking at chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, or orangutans, these foundational structures are universally present. The clitoris, the clitoral hood, the labia, and the surrounding tissues are shared across all of them. Our baseline equipment is just unmistakably part of our primate heritage.
Moving on to Section 2, Natural Anatomical Variation. This is the story of our evolutionary divergence.
Now here is where we start to see our first major divergence. Humans actually possess incredibly prominent outer labia that contain a lot of fatty tissue. But our closest relatives, like chimpanzees and bonobos, their inner labia are generally much less prominent. Now, surprisingly, doing direct comparisons is actually a bit tricky, mostly because much of what scientists know comes from anatomical descriptions rather than large-scale measurements of non-human apes.
So, what's the big takeaway for us here? It's that massive variation in the size and shape of human inner labia is completely expected. For some, the labia minora are largely concealed right within the outer labia, while for others, they extend well beyond them. It's honestly one of the most variable features of human anatomy, which means whatever yours looks like, it is quite literally an evolutionary norm.
That brings us to Section 3, Concealed Ovulation, the mystery of hidden fertility.
There is a really stark contrast between other apes and humans when it comes to fertility. Chimpanzees and bonobos go through these dramatic, externally visible genital swellings driven by hormonal changes during parts of their cycle. Humans, on the other hand, we have absolutely zero equivalent cyclic swellings visible on the outside.
Basically, humans followed a totally distinct evolutionary path where our fertility simply isn't advertised. Our ovulation is uniquely concealed, and honestly, this total lack of obvious anatomical signaling marks one of the absolute most distinctive aspects of human reproduction overall.
Okay, Section 4, Mechanics of Arousal. Here, we're returning to our shared primate traits.
While ovulation differs wildly, the physiological processes of arousal happen in humans exactly the way they do in other great apes. The clitoris of other great apes contains erectile tissue, just like ours. During arousal, these tissues become engorged with blood. That clitoral hood, it serves the exact same protective function across the board. And the visible changes you see result not just from the clitoris, but from the engorgement of all those surrounding tissues. The actual engine running the whole process is identical.
But here again, our human variation kind of changes the external presentation. Depending on your naturally varied anatomy, like the size of the clitoris or the length of the hood itself, the clitoral hood might actually become more prominent while covering the glands, or it might retract to reveal it during arousal. So the underlying engine is exactly the same, but the visual result varies immensely from person to person.
And finally, Section 5, the pubic hair puzzle, unraveling a very real evolutionary mystery.
Unlike our fully furred relatives who are covered with hair over pretty much most of their bodies, human evolution gave us a largely hairless body. Yet remarkably, we retained dense, terminal hair in a few very specific regions. This leaves us with a distinct patch of coarse pubic hair surrounded by relatively hairless skin. It's a bit odd when you think about it, right?
So why did we keep it? Well, scientists believe it's actually a combination of reasons. It likely evolved for friction reduction during movement and sexual activity, as well as the protection of sensitive skin and even the dispersal of scent-related chemical signals.
And just like our internal and external anatomy, the texture of that pubic hair varies wildly from person to person. Influenced by genetics, hormones, and age, some people have pubic hair that's only moderately thicker than the hair on their head. For others, it's dramatically coarser, stiffer, or a lot curlier.
Which naturally leads us to a very practical modern question. If this hair evolved specifically to protect us, why in the world does it sometimes cause so much irritation and discomfort today?
The main culprit? Modern underwear. We've essentially created an evolutionary clash. Tight clothing introduces sustained compression and friction against very delicate skin and mucosal surfaces, which is a variable completely absent in the wild ape environment. I mean, wild apes, of course, are not wearing restrictive lace or spandex. So when you combine highly variable, coarse, or curly pubic hair with tight clothing, it creates an everyday irritation that our ancestors simply never experienced.
Yet, despite these modern clashes and our unique differences, like concealed ovulation and reduced body hair, the core truth remains. The fundamental physiological mechanisms, from the developmental origins to the erectile tissues and genital engorgement, have been beautifully conserved for millions of years.
Ultimately, our bodies are a living record of our unique evolutionary history, but they are still deeply tethered to our primate past. It's a fascinating combination of similarity and difference. So the next time you think about your anatomy, ask yourself, does seeing it through this ancient evolutionary lens change how you view your own perfectly normal, uniquely human body?